Nostalgia is a fascinating thing. Among the typical emotions we feel on a day-to-day basis, I've always felt as if nostalgia harbored a kind of complexity and nuance that may be rather challenging to pinpoint, express, or even describe at times. And that's partly because it fluctuates through multiple various stages and experiences of our lives, whether shared, individual, positive, or negative. You feel joy because you managed to ace a quiz. You feel anger and frustration because things didn't go the way you wanted it to. You feel sad because the person of your dreams rejected you. But you feel nostalgia because, well, the simplest answer would be sentimental longing. The desire to go back to a certain period of time where things were simpler. And it's not always like there has to be a particular reason why you feel nostalgic. It just happens from time to time. Occasionally, during the moments we least expect it. Maybe you feel nostalgic when you're suddenly reminded of a JRPG that has reminded you of better days. Or a block world where the possibilities were infinite. Perhaps a certain tune you decided to replay on a whim. Or the instances where you find yourself rummaging through old photo albums, where each photo exemplifies a distant memory with now distant friends. Hell, even the simplest actions like gazing into a quiet sunset, or randomly thinking about a certain memory, whether good or bad, are all things which facilitate nostalgia. And within an emotion I've pretentiously labeled to be multifaceted and complex, is one that strangely involves the desire for the most innocent of simplicities. One away from the responsibilities, workloads, and the current reality. And as pretentious as it may be to the common eye, nostalgia can be such a heavy emotion with multiple layers of baggage to it, perhaps leaving you with a feeling of an identical weight. It may be vague or clear, a reminder of the innocent challenges or joys within a place where things were simply better. Fundamentally, nostalgia is nothing more than a moment to reminisce, be it on a younger version of yourself, with younger challenges and frustrations, yet simultaneously with younger joys and the making of cherishable memories you didn't know would be so valuable in the future. But I guess the unknowing nature of it all is precisely why such memories have grown to the level of nostalgia itself. However, I've come to gradually realize that nostalgia is more than just a sentimental reminder. It is a momentary means of escapism from the present moment, or perhaps a dreadful future. Have you ever just reflected on the past and completely lose yourself in the memories, wholly surrendering yourself to whatever memory your mind reminds you of, and being able to evaluate it in its entirety without the presence of personal bias, now that it has become said memory? Although known, it is nothing short of an experience that comes uniquely to the individual, one that is multifaceted in sensation. Such things may encapsulate warmth, coldness, embarrassment, comfort, or sorrow. The list continues. Yet, these experiences have been romanticized in a way, to the point of where it's become a kind of culture feeling. A shared phenomenon involving the romanticization of retro aesthetics and reviving past trends, be it in the form of video games, fashion, music, film filters, and most significantly, the general way of life it has curated. And as materialistic or superficial of a desire it may be, I feel more often than not, there's an underlying, perhaps profound, emotional attachment to it that's hard to describe in befitting words, considering our uniqueness as people. And it is in this attachment that has a way of swallowing you whole, of enveloping your heartstrings into a web of bygone times and memories, characterized by tender innocence, unadulterated by reality. And yes, such innocence has already been mentioned in this video, although it is but a mere generalization. What I want to say is, there's this compelling line within nostalgia that shifts back and forth between being shared and unique, individualistically specific, yet universally general. The media we consume can evoke a shared, almost universal sentiment to its demographic that involves the general feeling we got from experiencing such things. And yet, our lives are so utterly unique that one's personal definition or experience of nostalgia can only truly be comprehended to its fullest by themselves, and themselves only. The same can be mentioned for the stories we've come to value deeply. Yeah, you can use the most descriptive of language and wordage, the most accurate of metaphors and subtext, but there will always be a feeling from within that you got from the experience that only you can truly understand and feel. One that you will continue to carry until the end. Nostalgia is of the same note, and I feel that's where some of the melancholic solitude you might perceive may emerge from. The realization that you will never be able to re-experience or replicate the first time you experience something. The innocence of discovery. Obvious as it is as if the experience was made accordingly to the era, tailored fittingly to the time frame, and we all obviously recognize its susceptibility to being temporary, finite, the idea that all good things must come to an end. This leads us into the term historical nostalgia, defined as a longing for a certain era of time in which an individual did not experience firsthand or personally. Media akin to YouTube has served as an outlet for historical nostalgia, whether through the sensations of old Japanese city pop or the mere experience of reliving another individual's story. And yeah, it may signify a looming dissatisfaction with the present moment, although the subject goes far deeper than that. More than serving as an emotional storage in which we can remind ourselves of, this romanticized sentimentalism is a measurement. It is a way of how we monitor progress, regression, a manner of which we keep track of things. Yet, this isn't limited to ourselves and our personal experiences, but also for the stories of others we've grown to invest ourselves in, almost to the point where we insert ourselves into these memories, occasionally fictional, that aren't personally ours. This investment is, in a way, representative of the weight nostalgia carries, and the term, "you don't know what you truly have until it is gone," is a well-known saying that questions our appreciation for the past. But more importantly, it brings up the question, why exactly do we take things for granted, unaware of its value amid the moment? This all loops around the nebulous idea that impermanence remains as a fundamental truth. More often than not, we tend to underappreciate the relationships we form, and in general, the former life we once led, underestimating its worth. However, I understand that not every individual has had the most fortunate of backgrounds or childhoods. Hell, there's undeniably a substantial amount of experiences we could only wish to have not gone through. And although the present moment might not exactly be the most favorable, it could be said, for some of us, that the now fares better than the past. And yet again, there are those who beg to differ. This may be hard to articulate in a way that makes sense, but this correlates to how one may potentially romanticize any former negative experiences they've undergone personally, or through the lens of another. You don't exactly long to re-experience the demoralizing weight of that memory, but rather the familiarity of it all. You find nostalgic-like comfort in sadness because you've grown to view it as comprehensible, perhaps more familiar than the positivity of happiness. And of course, this varies from upbringing to upbringing. Biologically, our brains are naturally hardwired to remember negative memories more than positive ones as a survival mechanism. For better or for worse, depressing experiences tend to harbor higher memorability than positive or neutral ones. And I personally believe it's because they're more influential and potent, more often than not, signifying a turning point in one's life. So much to the point that it has simply become unerasable. Negative experiences harbor a kind of emotive weight that can leave such a lasting impact on an individual's life, ultimately leaving them with the choice of whether or not they'll allow themselves to succumb to such weight. You can have the most cherishable of memories, the most joyous of times, and yet all it takes to consume an individual is one demoralizing experience. And as time sails its course, when such intensified emotions begin to simmer, there comes this moment of reminiscence where an individual simply takes the time to reflect on those bygone challenges and tribulations, for the better or worse. What hurts most is not merely realizing the impermanence of life, but rather harboring deep regret for all the opportunities and times we could have spent valuing the experiences we've taken for granted. You can't help but feel a sense of loss at the thought of such things, a kind of nostalgic depression that sinks deep into your mind. Although nostalgia is not entirely affiliated with the past, it also concerns itself with the feeling of missing certain aspects of the present moment before they even vanish away, namely anticipatory nostalgia. It is largely defined by the challenges one may face in attempting to enjoy the present, knowing of its impermanence. Although you might already know to value the present moment with friends and family, or even a certain place, you will still feel this tinge of sadness in realizing of its vulnerability to finitude, of reflecting on the fact that this cherishable dynamic could change in the future. So instead of ruminating on the "if only I could go back," you now think, how long will this valuable time last? When am I going to lose this? Whether you are fantasizing about seemingly better times or dreading over the impermanence of them, nostalgia largely depends on your current perspective. The general consensus has often viewed nostalgia as a positive phenomenon, but clearly, that statement doesn't exactly hold true for everyone. It goes much deeper than that. Nostalgia tends to appear as a rather pleasant thought, but in actuality, it is merely a guise masking its true face. You might have had the luxury of living in the present as a child, who now struggles doing such things as an older person with larger responsibilities. You might have had unfortunate upbringings and experiences, but has eventually grown to appreciate the struggle for knowing how it has shaped you into the person you are today, realizing how far you've come. And in the worst case scenario, you might have equally had an unfortunate past and present, where you now fall to the weight of impending doom and negativity. Some of us want to be younger, and some don't. Some can relate to the good old days of nostalgia, and there are those who can't really sympathize with such things. But regardless of what you may have experienced in the past, what you may be going through now in the present, or what you might be anticipating in the near future, and whether you have perceived it to have been more good or bad, it is undeniably certain that one day you will be confronted with a series of choices that involve whether or not you will let the past rest, be it in the warm addicting comfort of nostalgia or the cold bitter struggles of it all. Because no matter what, if you allow the past, present, or future to consume you, not only will you never truly acknowledge what has already been done or departed, you also will never be able to visualize the bigger pictures of life. The choice is yours.